Long ago, there lived a sword master who, it is said, could fight a 1v10 and win with ease, style, and grace. Legend has it that he imparted all his masterful knowledge into one single scroll. But before his squire could deliver the scroll to the king, he was shot down in the back by a cowardly archer. To this day, that scroll remains unfound, and his knowledge lost. After many years of searching, Sir Montessoir comes to Fallmire Keep in search of the secret scroll.
Shall come to
I
pass.
feel the light leaning in another direction.
Show me mercy!
Seeing such a sight?
It is my pleasure to present the 10 secret techniques of Chivalry 2! Greetings and well met! My name is Montessoir and I'm a Chivalry 2 superfan. If this is your first time here, make sure you go check out the 10 Tenets of Chivalry 2. I won't be repeating the basic concepts discussed in that video. If you learn these 10 secret techniques, you will be able to best the vast majority of players, and you will be equipped to continue learning as you reach all the way up to A rank and even S rank and beyond. Let's get right to it. Stamina and health management! At the highest level of fighting, you should expect that your opponent can perfectly counter each of your attacks. That means the only way you're going to land hits on them is by using stamina-heavy tactics, and vice versa. Pay attention to this shield icon on your screen. It will display not only the amount of stamina you have remaining, but also the amount of stamina your opponent has remaining. When you see just a shield, that denotes your stamina. When you see a blade with a shield, that is your opponent's. Use this visual aid to help you keep track of your stamina versus your opponent's stamina, and use it against them to land a free hit once they drop their weapon. However, be careful. If you aren't paying close enough attention, it will be you who runs out of stamina first. Ah, no! I was winning! Not only do you need to be keeping track of stamina, but you also must be paying attention to your and your opponent's health. You can see your opponent's health through visual cues, such as extra blood on their body and a hunched over exhausted stature. But you can also use the small bar under their name at the bottom of your screen to see exactly how much they have left. If your defense is strong enough, you can actually regain some of your health during the fight, but only up to about 2/5. When fighting weapons that don't do more than that damage, this is imperative for your long-term survival in a duel. initiating fights, or your initial defense. When squaring up against your opponent in the circle, how you first begin your fight can often determine the outcome. The most common tactic is to stab just early enough so that it lands the moment your opponent comes into range. Luckily, stabs can be accelerated simply by walking forward. This can be compounded by your opponent walking towards you as well. If you're going to attack first, you always want to open up with your fastest and most accurate attack. You don't have to open with a stab, but if you do decide to open with a feint, a horizontal, or an overhead, you must consider the pattern recognition of your opponent. Do they expect a stab to be coming out? If so, perhaps a feint could work. But be careful, they could punish it with just a simple stab on their own and land a hit right at the beginning. Alternatively, you could wait for your opponent to attack and counter them right away, gaining the stamina advantage right at the start of the battle. How you decide what your initial attack or your initial defense will depend on the opponent you're fighting and the patterns that you recognize in their fighting style. If you manage to use all of the knowledge you've learned up to this point and land a hit right at the start of the fight, you could just secure yourself a victory. Know thyself and know thy opponent! When squaring up against a skilled opponent, you will need to consider multiple variables before deciding on your plan of attack. Every weapon will have its own unique variety on speed, range, damage, stamina negation, and animation. You will want to begin memorizing these for each weapon you come across. This knowledge will surely come with experience and experimentation. However, if you'd like to fast-track this process, and you're a data-minded individual, check out the community's database. I've added a link to the Google Sheet in the description below. Big shout out to Dumpster and One Love YouTube for putting it together. Not only must you keep the specific weapons in mind, but you must also take into consideration your opponent's class, as well as your own. Take a look at the different health values and stamina values for each class. Also consider the extra damage Chop and Blunt will do to Footman and Knight. If your opponent has less health than you, for example, but more stamina, such as the Vanguard, consider carefully when you take a stamina-heavy action. Throw them out less often, and focus on getting just a few good hits in. That's all you should need. Your fighting style will have to adapt depending on the weapon choices and class choices that you and your opponent have made. For example, when my opponent is using a fast one-handed weapon, whereas I am using a slow two-handed weapon, but one that has more range, I will always maintain distance and try and out-stamina them. On the other hand, if I have the fastest weapon, I become like the wind with a fast flurry of attacks, always keeping them on the defensive and hopefully catching them off guard with my feints. As the master tactician Sun Tzu codified in his body of work, The Art of War, if you know thy enemy and thyself, you need not fear the result of any battle. Artificial combos! While Chivalry 2 is nothing like Mortal Kombat, you can draw some similarities to other fighting games like Super Smash Brothers! In both Shiv 2 and Smash, there are no multiple sequence combo attacks. Up, up, down, down will only have you teabagging your opponent. No fireballs here. That being said, you can string certain standalone actions together to make a solid and consistent combo. Here is just an example of a few of them that I have discovered. Jab to kick. Same side feints. Counter to jab. Dodge out of counter. Crouch stab. Jump to downward stab. Flicking block away from a kick. counter thrown weapons out of the air. Always consider the different ways you can use each individual mechanic and how you can string them together to make an artificial combination. These are just a few examples, so let me know what ones you discover and tell me in the comments. Conditioning or pattern recognition. When locked in a difficult battle with an opponent who has mastered countering and the defensive feint, you're going to have to get clever to get past their defense. No player can read and react to every single attack every single time. Don't make their job easier by falling back on familiar patterns. Instead, plan ahead. Condition your opponent to expect one attack and then throw out a different one. Mixing up your attacks like this will make it much more difficult for players to defend. When defending, watch out for these patterns. If your opponent is falling into the same familiar attacks, try gambling on that knowledge and take advantage. However, beware, they may be conditioning you for a quick mix-up attack. Take, for example, this clip in which I condition my opponent to expect a stab and then mix up with the horizontal, and I land a hit. In this fight, I recognize that my opponent is fond of a stab to horizontal feint. Watch to see if you can pick up on the pattern. By the end of the fight, he has used this feint 4 different times and managed to hit me with it once. This means he will likely try to do it again. And so the next time we both reset to neutral, I, expecting the stab to horizontal feint, wait until he misses with the horizontal and then punish him on his recovery. Swing manipulation! In Chivalry 2, just as in Mordhau and CMW, you can manipulate the speed and direction of your swing by using your mouse. Looking into the attack accelerates it, and looking away drags it back. With the addition of held block, when and how you manipulate your swing has radically changed from the previous entries into the genre. You can no longer use it to cut down novices like swaths of chaff from the stalks of wheat. It is now primarily used at the highest level of play. The best fighters will have mastered the counter and the defensive feint. This is when you will use swing manipulation to get the best of them. Heavy attacks, while doing more damage and increased stamina drain, also act as a neutral drag. It can help to think of counters as a perfect parry. You must read your opponent's attack, direction, and speed, then time your counter just right so that your two weapons connect. Timing is everything, so you better watch out. Throw a counter out too early, and your opponent's drag will land. This is how you can take advantage of swing manipulation to beat your higher level opponents. Watch here as my opponent uses a heavy horizontal to drag his attack, bait a counter out from me, and land a hit. Ah, here it comes! Ouch, good hit, man! If you do counter too early, try extending your swing by dragging it towards your opponent's attack. This can be difficult to land, so don't rely on this mechanic, but always give it a shot. You can use your positioning to reduce the amount of space your blow needs to land. In this clip, I crouch just at the last second of my overhead acceleration, giving me just an extra millisecond of speed. You can also use this technique with your horizontal and stab attacks. Watch how in this clip, I position my opponent to my right, just off screen. When my attack comes out, it will have a very small distance to travel before landing. Then, I whip my follow-up combo by positioning him to the left and accelerating again. Conversely, this also works for drags. Since my attack comes out at a far distance from my opponent, all I have to do is drag it slightly to bait out an attack. If you do accidentally whiff your strike, try dragging it into your opponent. You'd be surprised just how far you can manipulate your swing. When fighting the best opponents, you will want to use both the traditional method of swing manipulation and your heavy attacks. You must also use your positioning and the various different attacks you have. You will need everything in your arsenal to best them. Micro Footwork! The most common footwork techniques that you learned in the 10 Tenets video are also the most telegraphed. And so when fighting at an advanced level, your opponent will be able to tell when you're trying to catch them on their recovery. So make sure you're constantly moving. Change directions often, and keep your opponent on their toes. Much of this footwork will be done within fractions of a second of each other. That's why I call it micro footwork. Watch here as I pivot to the right, just at the exact moment his attack releases, enabling me to avoid my opponent's attack and land a hit. Not only can you use micro footwork to avoid attacks, you can also follow the direction of your attack to land around your opponent's block. If your attack will be coming out of the left side of your screen, move to the left. And if it'll be coming out from the right, move to the right. Always try to move in a way that your opponent won't expect. You'll be able to catch many of them off guard this way, and if they aren't masters at aiming their cursor, then you'll land a free hit. When using your directional crouch to matrix an attack, it's important to note that if you attack first, then crouch, your body will not bend. So the technique you want to master is crouching first, then attacking. Watch here as I crouch to dodge, then attack. Here is what that looks like in first person. If you're like me, then you know how difficult it can be to react to jabs. At the highest level, the damage they do can mean the difference between life and death. Use your micro footwork to punish the jabber. When you expect a jab will be coming out, simply backpedal and combo. Against other fleet-footed fighters, you'll need to have this technique down if you want to keep up. Mastering micro footwork is imperative for your growth as a warrior. Against lesser opponents, you will be like water, flowing between their attacks. All they'll see is a whirlwind of strikes from your blade. One versus X, or the active parry! You'll want to avoid this situation as much as possible, but if you do find yourself on the bad end of a 1vx, you'll need to get aggressive and have a perfect defense. Now that you can hold block, surviving multiple attacks has never been easier. That doesn't mean you can just sit back and block without any consequences though. 2 or 3 hits, and you'll lose your weapon and be stunned. To block multiple hits for free, you'll need to take advantage of the active parry. Both the riposte and the counter have this ability. Once you've activated a counter or a riposte, all additional attacks caught within the window of the active parry will be blocked for free without additional stam cost. In addition, for each opponent you land an attack against, you will gain more stamina. The active parry will also block all specials, which normally can't be countered or riposted. The active parry effect will also carry over if you heavy or feint out of a counter or riposte, effectively extending it. It's so cool, you need to see it in an extra slow motion replay. Who dares oppose me? Riposts are easier to activate, faster, but will also cost more stamina. Counters, while being more difficult to land in a 1vx situation, will hit stop your opponent's attacks and cost no stamina. Experiment and learn to use both at the right time, and you'll survive more 1vx encounters. When fighting 1vx, always make sure to switch your targets often. Play your opponents against each other, and they will be caught off guard. Watch here as I stab my first opponent and immediately follow up with a combo and attack opponent number 2. Then I counter my first opponent and land the counter before my second opponent can hit, and then follow it up again with another combo to my first opponent. This is how you can take advantage of fighting multiple opponents at once, using the target switch. You must also use your swing manipulation and micro footwork when fighting multiple opponents. Watch here as I position my opponents against each other so that one of them downs the other, while I then drag my attack to land a hit against all 3. Haha! Bring more of you next time! While fighting 1vx, avoid getting countered. When you do, the game will apply an artificial turn cap to your camera, and as a result, you'll have a harder time catching opponents behind you. You never want to be caught in a 1vx, but if you are, then use these techniques I've taught you, and you'll find that you can kill more than you think. Stealing Initiative! In my video on the 10 Tenets, I showed you how an enterprising warrior can take initiative and regain their footing in a fight. Well, the truly bold warrior can not only take initiative for themselves, but using swing manipulation and weapon knowledge, they can steal it right back. Because initiative in Chivalry 2 is not given to you as a fighter, if you do anything outside of the traditional initiative tactics, you will open yourself up to a hit. As a result, there are only 3 safe actions you can take that will guarantee your opponent will not hit you. Those 3 are the counter, the riposte, and the jab. Trying to combo any other type of attack with those 3 safe actions will enable your opponent to steal your initiative. And so in Chivalry 2's high-level fights, everything is a cost-benefit analysis. Every time you feint, every time you combo, you are taking a risk. And you have to calculate if you think your opponent will be able to take advantage of that, or if your attack will land. This is a complicated mechanic, so let's take a look at each of the specific instances and show you exactly how initiative stealing works. All things being equal, ripostes will always beat a combo. However, try to mix in a feint, and your opponent's combo will land first. This only becomes easier for your opponent the slower you attack. For example, riposting to a heavy feint enables them to hit you with a neutral acceleration. They don't even need to combo. When mixing up with feints, it's best practice to always counter first. Countering hit stops your opponent's weapon and forces them into a small recovery period. Not enough to land a hit, but long enough for you to feint a heavy attack. However, as I explained, this is not a guarantee. This is an action outside of the safe initiative tactics. You could still be hit by a fast enough acceleration. Jabs are a surefire way to gain initiative. You will be able to follow up a jab with an attack of your own, while your opponent will have a very small recovery period. The jab is one of your best tools to steal initiative and combat the faster one-handed weapons. While it does only do 10 damage at a time without a shield or offhand weapon, you can still use it to best opponents that are spamming their accelerated neutral attacks or are relying on the combos of their faster weapons. Each jab also gives you a small amount of stamina once it connects. Haha, give him the old 1-2. You can also use the jab to punish kicks. When attacking, keep an eye out for opportunities to steal your opponent's initiative. But be careful, make sure you're always accelerating your attacks, or else. While it is true, generally speaking, that the riposte, counter, and jab are your safe initiative tactics, I would be remiss if I did not talk about the current balance issues regarding faster weapons. Because of the speed difference, a combo from a fast weapon can actually abrogate the riposte from a slower one. You don't even have to accelerate, as you can see here, just a regular combo works. So, at the time of recording for this video, the only truly safe actions you have are the riposte, counter, and jab combined with a very fast acceleration. I am confident that in time we will see balance patches from Torn Banner Studios to fix these issues with the faster weapons. For now, however, make sure you're accelerating every single attack you can. Know that every time you feint, drag, or heavy, you are taking a risk, and against faster weapons, opening yourself up to a hit. Oh, that was a lot in a short amount of time. To recap, if you slow down your attacks with feints, drags, and heavies, you in essence give up the initiative you've just taken. If you are using a slow weapon versus a fast one, you only safely have initiative when accelerating a riposte. And when stealing initiative, wait for or predict your opponent's slow attack, and throw out your own fast attack as soon as possible. Understand and master the initiative steal, also known as the gamble, and you will be able to counter it and beat the toughest opponents. Practicing best practices! Perspective is everything. When you lose a fight, don't focus on the weapon choices, the last attack that landed, or even a bug that prevented you from landing a hit. No fight in Chivalry 2 can be ended in one hit. Most of the time, if you found yourself with little to no health left, then you've already made several mistakes that led up to that point. Try to pick out what exactly gets past your defense. Continue challenging the opponent that beats you and frustrates you. Take a moment to think about what you can do differently, and try again until you come out on top. Never make excuses for why you lost. Instead, find reasons how you could have won, and then apply them. If you go in with the right perspective, with enough practice, you will be able to beat any opponent you find on the battlefield. And those are all the secrets I have to teach you. Head out there into the world, find your rivals, and best them in the field of battle. And that's a wrap on the 10 secret techniques of Chivalry 2. Like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Keep an eye out for my future coaching tutorials and cinematic videos. Check out my Twitch and Discord, links in the description. Big shout out to the following for helping to make this guide.